At 1:151 p.m., my mother sent a cold message. You're no longer part of this family. My brother hearted it. They thought I was just a useless art conservator they could discard. They forgot I'd secretly been paying all their bills for years. By 12:03 a.m., I'd canceled everything. Their brownstone's mortgage, my brother's $50,000 MBA tuition, and my father's club membership. The next day, my mother showed up at my door, begging. But she froze when I handed her the foreclosure notice. It was 11:51 p.m. when the message lit up my phone. It was from my mother, Stephanie. I stared at the preview, my mind processing the words before I even opened the text. Claire, after a long discussion, your father Trevor and I have all agreed. It's better this way. You are no longer part of this family. The message was cold, final. A lifetime of being overlooked, summarized in a single, brutal text. Seconds later, a new notification popped up. My brother Trevor had hearted the message. I didn't cry. I didn't text back asking why. The anger wasn't hot this time. It was cold. It was clinical. It was clarity. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I sat there in the silence of my apartment, the glow of the screen painting my face. 11:53 p.m. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't text my mother back begging for an explanation, because the explanation was already there. Trevor's single, simple heart on the message was the only explanation I needed. It wasn't a mistake. It was a declaration. My anger wasn't loud this time. It wasn't hot. It was clinical. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and waited for the login screen. The sound of the fan whirring to life was the only sound in the room. I opened my bank's website. My dashboard lit up spreadsheets, accounts, automatic transfers. The architecture of my family's entire life, all conveniently managed on one screen. First, I clicked on the monthly recurring payment labeled Bradley to Mortgage. The transfer that kept their precious Boston brownstone, the symbol of their old money status, from falling into foreclosure. I clicked Cancel Payment. A small box popped up. Are you sure I clicked? Confirm. Next, I scrolled down. Trevor, MBA tuition. $50,000 a year paid in monthly installments. He was 2 years into a program he barely attended, but it gave him status. I clicked Cancel Payment, clicked Confirm. Finally, the payment for Bradley, Boston Country Club. The monthly dues that allowed my father to network, to maintain the illusion of success, to feel important. Click, Confirm. I closed the laptop. The clock on the wall read 12:03 a.m. It took 12 minutes to dismantle the empire they thought was theirs. You see, my family made one critical mistake. They believed their own narrative. They saw me as Claire, the dreamy artist, the quiet, sensitive one who wasted her time restoring old paintings instead of pursuing a real career in finance like Trevor or in law like my father. They saw me as a harmless, failed investment. What they forgot, what they chose to forget, was that 3 years ago, when my father's, Bradley's consulting firm was on the verge of bankruptcy due to a series of spectacularly bad investments, it wasn't Trevor who saved him. It was me. I had just received the initial inheritance from my godmother, Kathleen, while my family was busy calculating how much they could ask me, for I made a preemptive move. I became a silent partner, injecting just enough capital to keep the company afloat. A year later, when they forgot to pay the property taxes on the brownstone for 6 months straight, It was my account that wired the money saving the house from a tax auction. I wasn't their daughter. I was their silent investor. I was their safety net. I wasn't just part of the family. I was the one footing the bill for their entire performance of being one. I didn't do it out of generosity. Generosity implies a choice. I did it out of necessity. For years, I had been bound by an invisible chain. It wasn't made of steel, but of something far stronger, the desperate, childish hope that I could buy their acceptance. It was a silent, toxic transaction I'd been participating in my whole life. I'd give them my money, my time, my energy, and in return, they would almost treat me like I belonged. This is the invisible chain of the survivor. It's a prison without bars, built from years of being told your worth is conditional. You start to believe the only way to earn your place at the table is to pay for the chair you're sitting in. I was the black sheep, the artistic one in a family that worshipped the stock market. My father, Bradley, measured a person's worth by their tax bracket. My mother, Stephanie, measured it by their social connections. My brother, Trevor, just measured it by what he could take from them. I, with my passion for art history, my love for the quiet, dusty work of restoring lost paintings, I was a walking disappointment, a failed investment. So I paid. I paid for my father's failing company, thinking this would finally make him respect my business sense. He took the money and then forgot to invite me to the company's anniversary dinner. I paid Trevor's $50,000 a year tuition, thinking this would make him see me as a peer, an equal. He cashed the checks and then hearted the text message that exiled me from my own family. It's a form of psychological Stockholm syndrome. You become loyal to the very people who are holding you captive. You mistake their bare minimum tolerance for love and their absence of cruelty for kindness. I kept thinking, just one more payment, just one more rescue. This time, they'll see me. This time, they'll be grateful. This time, I'll finally be enough. But standing there in my kitchen at midnight, staring at that cold, final text from my mother, the chain, didn't just break. It evaporated. I realized I hadn't been paying for their acceptance. I had been paying to rent it, and the lease was finally up. The sun hadn't even risen when my phone began to vibrate. It didn't stop for an hour. I let it go, watching the screen light up with a frantic rhythm against my dark bedroom wall. Trevor, Dad, Mom, Trevor, Mom, Mom. I finally picked it up at 7 a.m., coffee in hand. The lock screen was a cascade of missed calls and panicked text messages. The first one I opened was from Trevor. You're overreacting. Mom didn't mean it that way. Turn the tuition back on Claire. It's not funny. Not funny. I sipped my coffee. The next was a voicemail from my mother, Stephanie. Her voice wasn't apologetic. It was furious. Claire, I don't know what kind of childish game you're playing, but you've created a massive mess. Bradley's club membership was declined. Do you understand the humiliation? You call us immediately, and you fix this. You fix this now. I deleted the voicemail. Then I opened Facebook. My mother had already posted a vague, passive-aggressive status aimed directly at me. It's so sad when a child forgets the sacrifices their family made for them. Some people just don't understand gratitude or loyalty. I almost laughed. Gratitude. Loyalty. But as I read her words, I realized something. This wasn't just anger. This was pure, undiluted panic. My family's power wasn't just from their money. It was their money. They were living in an illusion of power, bought with a currency they didn't even possess. Their old money status, their social standing, their entire identity. It was all a hollow shell, and I had just become the one person who knew it. They hadn't built their lives on being someone of value. They had only focused on having things that looked valuable. When you take the having away, there's nothing left. They weren't just losing their mortgage payment or their club membership. They were losing themselves, and that's why they were so dangerous. They weren't shocked by what they'd done. They were shocked that I'd stopped playing along. That realization changed everything. This was no longer a family dispute. It was a hostile takeover. And I was finally ready to treat it like one. I scrolled through my contacts past Mom and Dad and stopped on a name I hadn't needed in a long time. Richard. My godmother Kathleen's lawyer and the executor of her estate. I pressed the call button. He answered on the second ring. Claire, I've been wondering when you'd call. Richard, I said, my voice steady and cold. They're panicking. I need you to draft a formal notice. I want a full repayment plan for the business loan and the property taxes. 30 days. Before they try to hide the assets. Consider it done, he said. I'll get started immediately. One more thing, Richard. While you're at it, I need you to look into Kathleen's art trust. Everything. I spent the rest of the day working, not on my art restoration, but on my own finances. I pulled every bank statement, every wire transfer confirmation, every text message from my father that started with Claire. Just need a little help to float the company. I built a spreadsheet, a cold, hard ledger of their betrayal. The total was staggering. It wasn't just the brownstone mortgage or Trevor's MBA. It was years of smaller cuts. The $5,000 for their anniversary trip to Paris. The $2,000 for Trevor's car repairs. The constant, unending drain of my inheritance, all under the guise of family. By noon, I had a complete file. This wasn't emotion anymore. This was accounting. Richard called back just after 2 p.m. His voice was different. The professional warmth from our earlier call was gone, replaced by something clipped and cold. Claire, he said, I've drafted the repayment notice for the business loans. It's ready to send, but I found something else. You asked me to look into everything related to Kathleen's estate. The art trust, I said, my stomach tightening. Yes, I pulled the full transaction history for the last 2 years. Claire, there are withdrawals here I don't recognize. Significant ones. What do you mean? I asked, though I already knew. There's a withdrawal here for $40,000 dated 6 months ago. It was authorized while Kathleen was unwell. She wasn't incapacitated, but she was sick. Maybe she bought a new piece, I offered the words, feeling hollow. The signature, Richard said, his voice flat. It doesn't match her file. I've pulled 3 other documents from the same time period. This signature is different. It's close, but it's not Kathleen's. The room went silent. I stared at a crack in my apartment ceiling, the implications settling over me like a shroud of ice. 6 months ago. $40,000. Whose signature is it, Richard? He paused, and I knew he was confirming it one last time. It looks, he said slowly, an awful lot like your father's. I closed my eyes. It all clicked. The desperation for me to keep funding the company. The sheer, unadulterated panic when I cut off the money. It wasn't just about losing his club membership. He was terrified of an audit. He was terrified of this exact moment. My father Bradley, the man who lectured me about responsibility, the man who built his identity on old money and family honor. He wasn't just an ungrateful, emotionally abusive leech. He was a thief. And he hadn't just stolen from me. He had stolen from Kathleen. The woman who had been his family friend for decades, who had mentored me, who had shown him nothing but kindness. He had robbed her likely while she was too sick to notice. The last tiny, foolish ember of my childhood, the part that still wanted a father, went cold. "Richard," I said, and my voice was perfectly calm, perfectly steady, "send the repayment notice for the loans and send the forgery evidence to the district attorney. Immediately." The knock on my door came 3 days later. It wasn't the frantic pounding of my brother or the authoritative rap of a lawyer. It was a hesitant, almost broken tapping. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother, Stephanie. She wasn't the woman I knew. The perfectly tailored blazers were gone, replaced by a rumpled trench coat. Her hair wasn't in its perfect old money twist. It was falling out of a clip, stringy and damp from the Boston drizzle. Her eyes were red and swollen. I opened the door, but left the chain on. She didn't try to push her way in. She just looked at me. Her face crumpled in a way I'd never seen. "Claire," she whispered. "Please." "What do you want, Mom?" "You have to stop this," she said, her voice cracking, gripping the doorframe. "Please, Claire, you've ruined us." I said nothing. I just waited. "Your father. There. Seizing the accounts. The house. Claire. The brownstone. They sent a foreclosure notice. We have 30 days. I leaned against my side of the door, my voice quiet. He shouldn't have used it as collateral for business loans he couldn't pay. "He was trying to save us," she cried. "And Trevor, they suspended his tuition. He's been kicked out of the MBA program until the balance is paid. He's devastated. He should have gotten a student loan like everyone else." "You don't understand," she hissed her desperation, turning back to anger for just a second. "The humiliation. Bradley's partners are asking questions. The bank. Everyone knows. You've destroyed his reputation." "He did that," I said, my voice like ice. "He did that when he stole $40,000 from a sick woman. He did that when he forged Kathleen's name." My mother flinched as if I'd slapped her. She hadn't known. I knew that part. That's not true," she stammered. "Richard is he's lying. "Stop," I said. "Just stop lying. What do you want?" She finally broke. The mask of the Boston socialite shattered, and all that was left was a terrified woman. "Please," she sobbed, pressing her forehead against the door. "He's your father. Trevor is your brother. We're your family. You told me I wasn't." I didn't mean it. I was angry. "Please, Claire, you're the only one who can fix this. You have the money. Just do something. Do something for your family." I looked at her, at this woman who had told me I wasn't part of the family who had hearted my brother's cruelty, who was now begging me to save her from the consequences of her own husband's crimes. "Okay," I said softly. Hope flared in her eyes. "Really, oh Claire, I knew you'd. Wait here." I unlatched the chain and closed the door, leaving her standing in the hallway. I walked to my desk. On it was the stack of documents Richard had couriered over that morning. I picked up the top one. I walked back to the door and opened it. She was wringing her hands, a hopeful, desperate smile on her face, expecting a checkbook. I handed her the paper. It was a copy of the official foreclosure notice. Her smile froze as she read it. What is this?" "You asked me to do something," I said. "I already did. I made sure the bank knew exactly which assets to seize first to cover the fraudulent loans." She looked up, her face a mask of pure, uncomprehending horror. You did this." "No," I said. "He did. I'm just balancing the books. Goodbye, Mom." I closed the door in her face, latched the deadbolt, and walked away as the sound of her screaming my name finally echoed through the empty hall. The legal battle ended not with a bang, but with a quiet, desperate signature. Faced with indisputable evidence of forgery, my father Bradley had no leverage left. The threat of criminal prosecution was enough. Richard drafted the settlement. My father and brother would renounce all claims to Kathleen's estate, present and future. In exchange, I would not pursue criminal charges for the $40,000 he stole. He signed it. 2 weeks later, the Boston brownstone was sold at auction. The symbol of their old money lineage, the fortress of their social standing gone. The proceeds went to the banks to cover the fraudulent loans he'd taken out. My family as I knew them was dissolved. That night, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up the old spreadsheet I had kept for years, the one titled Family Expenses. Line after line, month after month, the mortgage, the club dues, Trevor's tuition, the anniversary trips, the car repairs. I scrolled to the bottom and looked at the grand total. The number that represented years of my life, years of biting my tongue, years of hoping to be seen. I stared at that number for a long time. It was the price of my silence. Then I highlighted the entire spreadsheet and I hit delete. It wasn't accounting. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. That night, for the first time in my adult life, I slept through till morning. No guilt, no anxiety, no noise, just silence. The next week, I met with Richard. I transferred $1 billion from my inheritance into a new account. We called it the Kathleen Foundation, a fund dedicated to finding and financing the next generation of artists and restorers. The ones like me, the ones who work in the quiet, the ones who are overlooked. It wasn't a monument to my victory. It was a legacy of her trust. And it was in building that I finally understood. This is a letter for anyone who has ever felt like they were on the outside of their own life. For the one who was told they were too sensitive, too quiet, or too different. For the person who has been trying their entire life to earn a seat at a table they were never welcome at. I want you to hear this. You are not invisible. Your worth is not determined by their inability to see it. You don't need their permission to be celebrated. You don't need their invitation to shine. The moment you stop trying to buy their love is the moment you become rich enough to buy your own freedom. Your value isn't something they get to decide. It's something you get to build.